Welcome to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called Password Resets. I'm in a senior role at a service desk. Like everywhere else, if we see a ticket come in that has already been done or is a duplicate request, we just cancel the tickets and move on with our day. Well, we have this one user who is our vice president, and they are the type of person who thinks the world revolves around them. So they would be the person to send in a ticket, then 5 minutes later send another ticket, and so on and so on and so on, until there's like a dozen tickets in the system. Well, a few weeks ago we introduced a new password policy, 18 characters etc., with an additional policy that makes you change your password after a reset. You can't use a password you used before, and this was a big change considering our previous policy was no requirements. Most users figured it out pretty well, and even the VP. Now, this is where the malicious compliance comes in. With that new password policy, it was also introduced that all tickets must be actioned before resolving them, and you can guess who brought this change in. So the VP went on vacation for a bit, then came back and forgot their password, and like normal, they would send in a dozen or more tickets. Now, in the 5 minutes or so between their tickets, we would get 1 to 5 other tickets come in, and it takes about 10 minutes to go through those. So my team and I went through every ticket as we are told to do. We were counting the number of times we reset the VP password because we knew this was going to come back on us. So lo and behold, in the span of about an hour we reset the password 11 times. This is when our manager comes in and says, "I just got an email from the VP and they say you keep resetting their password." My manager is a good guy, and I remind him of the new ticket policy. He chuckles and heads back to his office, and he forwards us an email with the subject, "Stop resetting my password." In the email it says they had to change their password 12 times and they are running out of passwords they can think of and to stop resetting their password. I reply all to the email and say, "Due to a new policy of tickets where we have to action each one before resolving it, we had to reset your password a number of times." No less than an hour later, our department gets an email from the president. It says, "We have reviewed one of your new ticket policies and believe this not to be the best use of your time, so we are going to ask you to recant this policy." Needless to say, we stopped the policy because it was dumb from the start, and surprisingly, the VP actually started sending fewer and fewer tickets. The next story is called Bad Customer. In the 90s, I used to work for a delivery company. For some customers, we provided a PC and software to print out labels and upload package information by modem. The contract required that the customer provide a phone line and upload the manifest daily so that they could be billed. One customer kept on unplugging or disabling the modem. This meant that every day, dozens of his packages would be picked up and delivered over the next 2 days, but because the modem was disconnected, he wasn't getting billed. A trouble ticket was sent to me, and I went for a site visit to diagnose the issue. The customer was nice at first and said there was nothing wrong. But as soon as I reconnected the modem and started the upload, in the 90s, so there was a screeching of the modem, he immediately got angry. He started cursing me out and telling me that I was rude and disrupting his business. I left. He called his sales rep and made up a bunch of lies about me being combative. The sales rep was cowardly and didn't want to upset this customer, so did nothing. He is supposed to speak with the customer to remind him of the contract requirements. A week later, the ticket again hits my queue. I go out there. The customer is still pretty rude, but I tell him that I have to do their maintenance. He informs me that he has to use the phone line right then for an emergency. But contractually, the line had to be dedicated to the shipping computer. He then tells me to leave, so I do. This goes on for almost 3 months, with me getting the ticket, the customer having some excuse why I can't use the modem, then telling me to leave. I have to visit the customer each time I get the ticket in my queue. The inevitable ticket comes in. Okay, no problem. While he's watching me like a hawk, I go to a secondary process and download the manifest to our floppy. We almost never do this, so the customer was unfamiliar with this other method. I am super friendly, don't ever connect the modem and go about the routine cleanup. I leave. An hour later, I upload the manifest from my workstation to billing. 2 days later, the sales guy is really worried. What happened? I uploaded the customer manifest. It's in the procedure manual for what to do when the modem is unavailable. Because of the huge delinquency, several months, close to 15k, the customer went to collections. The sales guy was reprimanded. The customer later went out of business. Though this was unlikely caused solely by this event, I like to think it contributed. The third story is called Shortest Trip Possible. At my job, every day I have to travel between two offices. I start at my main office, then have to travel to the second office, then back to my main office. Because I'm using my personal vehicle for this travel, the company pays me mileage. Well, there are basically two routes you can take between the two offices. One is about a mile round trip shorter, but has tolls. So I always took the 1 mile longer route and avoid the tolls. I did it this way for a year. Well, in comes the new bookkeeper, and she is hellbent on saving the company money. And where does she think all this wasteful money is going? Expense reports, obviously. So she starts nitpicking every report. Like if someone is out and has to buy some pants for work. She goes online and finds the cheapest price possible for those pants and only reimburses for the cheaper price. It obviously has set several people off. Well, she eventually decided to target me. I submit my report for 2 weeks and a few days later get the reimbursement payment. Well, it's $6 short. I asked her about it and she says I've been ripping off the company for the past year by taking the longer route between the offices. She will only pay mileage for the shorter route from now on. And I'm lucky she doesn't go back and take back all the extra from the past year. I say okay, but to please send me that per her I must take the shorter route and that this is company policy and leave her office. Before I even made it to my desk, I had the email from her confirming what she said. 2 weeks later, I submit my expense report. But tolls added up to $136, a net loss for the company of $130. It's been 6 months and I'm still taking the shorter route, costing the company an extra $130 every 2 weeks. The next story is called Don't Treat Me Differently. A number of years ago, I was a server at a local tavern and was walking up to the door frame to start my shift, noticed someone behind me and politely held the door. It was the newish server, and she proceeded to lecture me about how I should not treat her differently and hold the door just because she is a woman, etc. I was pretty taken aback because I was taught to hold the door for anyone behind me regardless, because it's polite. We were both working the patio section together that day. About 5 hours of tension after the confrontation, would I line out the door, raid, kitchen backed up, everything. End of shift hits and it's time to clean up. With this huge heavy cooler we would fill with ice and carry out every shift for condiments. The rule was that one person carried it out, the other would carry it back. I happened to be the one to carry it out, so when it was her turn to carry it back, she came up to me and asked if I would help her with it. I'm sure you've guessed already, but I hit her with, "Sorry, wouldn't want to treat you differently because you are a woman." Then I handed in my checkout slip, clocked out and left. She was a lot nicer after that day. The last story is called Speed It Up. I work in a steel mill where we roll hot steel into coils used to make bolts, screws, etc. We have a union and it's fairly nice work to do, so the company usually is unable to recruit or convince anyone that already works here to join the salaried staff. They end up getting these random people with no prior experience. The company then puts these foremen with like 2 weeks of training in and then has them tend for themselves. Most are usually cognizant of their inexperience and listen to the union employees when problems occur. This one particular foreman, however, felt he was God's gift to middle management and thought he knew better than anyone. Depending on the product being made, the total production can vary. The smaller products take more time and refinement than the larger ones. This didn't deter our new foreman who wanted a higher amount produced in his shift. He called the main operator to speed up the production line. When said employee told him it was a bad idea and would cause issues, the concerns were met with, "I'm your direct supervisor, you will do what I asked you to do." Our main operator proceeded to increase the speed by pushing the control lever and telling the foreman, "Tell me when to stop." Not knowing when, the foreman waited far too long before saying anything. Everything folded into itself with violent screeching. It took nearly 2 hours to cut all the metal and clean up everything to get started again. Said foreman hasn't asked to increase the speed again, yet. And with that, we end today's video. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the stories and today's video? I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I do and would like to support me, please subscribe and hit the like button. I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.